Hi there, my name is Reese, and in my last video I talked briefly about a trading card game I used to play called Archetype, and how I seem to be the only person that even remembers it. Unfortunately, I'm still nowhere with this, so as I mentioned before, I'm going to talk about how the game's actually played. I'm hoping that if you hear some of the terminology and see how the game is played, it might spark some memories in people. I'll be making it as simple and easy to understand as I can, but if you have any questions or if you want anything explaining in more detail, then join my Discord. That's the best place to find me. So, the easiest way to explain how to play Archetype would be to say,
see, each card has an attack number and a defense number. First player to eliminate their opponent's life points wins the duel.
But there's a lot more to it than that. It's a two-player game, and once both players decide who's going first by tossing a coin, they start by drawing 7 cards. The way you draw 7 cards isn't that simple though. There's 2 decks you can draw from, the main deck and the material deck, and you decide how many cards from each one you're going to draw from before you do so. So, for example, you could choose to draw 4 from your main deck and 3 from the material deck. The player who's going first says what they're going to draw first, then they draw, and the player going second then does the same. As for cards you can draw, there's 3 different kinds of cards. You draw elements and runes from your main deck, and materials are from your material deck. Now, elements are what you fight your opponent with. They're your creatures in Magic, your monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh!, your Pokemon in Pokemon. Each element belongs to an archetype, has a material cost to summon, strength and stamina stats, 1 or 2 types, and some but not all of them have card effects that you can activate. Runes are what you use to gain more advantage over your opponent. They're your instants in Magic, your spells in Yu-Gi-Oh!, your trainers in Pokemon. Runes also have material costs, and there are multiple types of runes that work in different ways, though I'll cover that in a separate video. You may have guessed, but materials are what you use to play your element and rune cards. They're a bit like land from Magic and sort of like energy from Pokemon, but not really. You don't play and tap them like in Magic, you just pay the material cost. Now, there's 5 material types, and they all had like lore and meaning to them, but everyone just called them by the colours. Those colours being black, blue, green, red and yellow. Once both players have 7 cards in their hand, the game begins. Turns are done in phases, these being the draw, summoning, battle, recovery and the end phase. To help you better understand how a turn works, I'll go over what a typical first few turns might look like. Player A pays 2 materials to summon an element in their hand. Player A can't attack because they went first, so the element doesn't do anything right now. They then pay another material in their hand to use a rune card. The rune then goes to the void once its effect resolves. Player A then ends their turn with 2 cards left in their hand. Player B then starts their turn. They spend 1 material to summon an element to the battlefield, and they then spend another material to summon a second one. Player B then goes to their battle phase and attacks their opponent's element with one of theirs. Player A has an element with 2 strength and 3 stamina, while player B has an element with 2 strength and 0 stamina, which means that player A's element takes 2 damage, leaving them with 1 stamina left, and player B's element is defeated. Player A's element remains on the battlefield with the damage taken from the battle, and player B's element is sent to their reserves. Player B then attacks player A's element with their remaining element. Player A's element now has 2 strength and 1 stamina, while player B's element has 1 strength and 2 stamina. In response to their element being attacked, player A pays 1 material in their hand to play a rune that boosts their element stamina by 2, which would mean their element wouldn't get defeated anymore this turn. In response to this, player B pays 2 materials to play a rune that takes the stamina boost from player A's element and applies it to player B's instead. With no more cards to play on either side, the battle takes place, and player A's element is defeated and sent to their reserves. Player B then ends their turn with 0 cards in their hand. Player A then starts their turn, saying the amount of cards they'll draw from each deck before doing so, just like they did at the start of the game. They pay 1 material to summon an element from their hand to the battlefield, and they then pay the material cost of the element in their reserves to summon that back to the battlefield as well. Player A then sends both of their elements to their void to summon an alchemy element from their alchemy deck. I'll be going over alchemy elements in more detail in another video. The game then continues with both players going back and forth at each other until either one of the players runs out of life points, which is a resource you lose when attacked directly or from card effects, or if either player can't draw any more cards from their main and material decks. And that's pretty much it. I really hope some of that sounded familiar. I can remember it clear as day, so it just seems so weird and crazy that no one else can. If anything I've talked about today rings a bell, please send me evidence that you have that the game exists, whether it's an old card of yours, if you have the instruction booklet that'd be great, If you've got an old playing mat or just anything that you can remember, please let me know, and I will make a video showcasing what you've sent. If no one can send me anything, I'll make a video instead about one of the archetypes I liked as a kid. I'll cover some of the elements and runes that were in it, and the overall strategy. It should be a fun one. I'm not going to stop until I see those cards again.